coup to create College Admissions 411, a weekly Spanish language series which provides practical information about the complicated college admission process. And now, HITN is also developing online initiatives. One of those is HITN Learning, a web-based bilingual learning program aligned directly with the Common Core standards, designed to deliver literacy and mathematics competencies for 36 graders. It also includes a focus on healthy eating. HITN is also producing a series of digital places for English language learners across multiple platforms. The courses are intended to help English language learners develop skills in English language and literacy. Through its diverse programming, community programs, and digital initiatives, HITN strives to become part of the success of all Latinos in the United States. HITN. HITN educa y entretiene.
You catch the last one, no?
Yes.
Oh, so welcome back. And here, this is the program for today. Yeah, I see that.
Available all across the United States and Puerto Rico, HITN is the voice of Latinos in the United States, reaching its diverse community through quality education and entertainment-based programming.
Yeah.
HITN
You see the last one?
No.
Maybe we can.
Messages.
No, one's connected now. This is the one we're going to use for audio. We're not even going to see that screen, so it's okay.
Hello? Hi, good coming. Hello? I have a message. Leave the door open. Hello?
Can you, Chris, are you here?
She tried to call me, but. How are we doing?
I don't know why they're not working there.
Hey Albany, how you doing? Can you give me
Good,
some
can you hear
feedback,
me?
please? Yes, I have you, but I don't have video from
We
you.
have you now, don't we?
Because I've got the shutter closed, you need to dial the second IP address as well. I asked if you dial both IP addresses this morning.
Yeah,
As you can see, I've got the shutter closed.
Okay, hold on.
The Puerto Rican Heritage Poster Series exemplifies collective efforts that have been undertaken since the 1970s to rescue, document, and preserve the rich history of Puerto Rican migration and the presence and contributions of Puerto Ricans to U.S. society. The Centro de Estudios Puertorriqueños, or as we call it, Centro, has been a leading contributor to these efforts. The poster series is a project aimed at providing an attractive visual educational tool
Available all across the HITN is the voice of Latinos in the United States, reaching its diverse community, quality education, and entertainment-based programs. HITN also offers a unique fusion of media and technology through a series of initiatives. Connect initiative reaches directly into the community by developing a coalition of local grassroots organizations, colleges, libraries, and content providers through the use of multimedia broadband technologies. Through its CBO Connect platform, HITN partnered with higher education institutions and community-based organizations to offer Career Fast Track, a program that offers accelerated distance learning courses, certificate programs, workforce training, and educational support to help adult learners get ahead and achieve their goals. HITN has also partnered with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, HACU, to create College Admissions 411, a weekly Spanish language series which provides practical information about the complicated college admission process. And now, HITN is also developing online initiatives. One of those is HITN Learning, a web-based bilingual learning program aligned directly with the Common Core standards, designed to deliver literacy and mathematics competencies for 3rd to 6th graders. It also includes a focus on healthy living. HITN is also producing a series of digital playsets for English language learners across multiple platforms. The Koyo playsets are intended to help English language learners develop skills in English language and literacy. Through its diverse programming, community programs, and digital initiatives, HITN strives to become part of the success of all Latinos in the United States. HITN. HITN educa y entretiene. Available all across the United States and Puerto Rico, HITN is the voice of Latinos in the United States, reaching its diverse community through quality education and entertainment-based programming. HITN also offers a unique fusion of media and technology through a series of initiatives. The CBO Connect initiative reaches directly into the community by developing a coalition of local grassroots organizations, colleges, libraries, and content providers through the use of multimedia broadband technologies. Through its CBO Connect platform, HITN partnered with higher education institutions and community-based organizations to offer Career Fast Track, a program that offers accelerated distance learning courses, certificate programs, workforce training, and educational support to help adult learners get ahead and achieve their goals. HITN has also partnered with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, HACU, to create College Admissions 411, a weekly Spanish language series which provides practical information about the complicated college admission process. And now, HITN is also developing online initiatives. One of those is HITN Learning, a web-based bilingual learning program aligned directly with the Common Core standards. designed to deliver literacy and mathematics competencies for 36 graders. It also includes a focus on healthy living. HITN is also producing a series of digital playsets for English language learners across multiple platforms. The Koyo playsets are intended to help English language learners develop skills in English language and literacy. Through its diverse programming, community programs, and digital initiatives, HITN strives to become part of the success of all Latinos in the United States. HITN. HITN educa y entretiene.
Creo que no ha hecho otra forma que no sea chino por Pepe. ¿Ah? Pepe.
Sí.
Desde que nació.
¿Ocheo está ahí también?
Sí, está, a ver si lo
dirige
la Yupi.
Él de la esquina abajo, allá a la izquierda abajo. Solito. Está solo allí,
solito.
Está solito.
¿Cheo está solito hoy?
No, míralo ahí. Bueno, por lo menos aquí no se ve.
Hace años que yo no veo a Cheo.
¿Está solo, sí?
Okay, what have we got online? 119th Street?
Available all across the United States and Puerto Rico, HITN is the voice of Latinos in the United States, reaching its diverse community through quality education and entertainment-based programming. HITN also offers a unique fusion of media and technology through a series of initiatives. The CBO Connect initiative reaches directly into the community by developing a coalition of local grassroots organizations.
Acá sí.
Sí.
No, we're up. Esa es mi gente, la de
Sí.
la mesa. TIC.
Well, where's Brooklyn?
Yes. Different angle.
Where's Brooklyn? Did Brooklyn come on?
¿Dónde está Brooklyn?
Lo que queda.
Available all across the United States and Puerto Rico, HITN is the voice of Latinos in the United States.
No veo, y yo no veo nada.
Ese es Pedro Juan.
Sí,
No,
esa
¿verdad?
es la
Estoy
gente
ciego.
de Honker.
No veo, me leo.
Nosotros vamos a Ancestry Question. Ellos lo hicieron.
No, ese ya no se puede. Cada 2 años me dice no puedo.
Reaches directly into the community by developing a coalition of local grassroots organizations, colleges, libraries, and content providers through the use of multimedia broadband technologies. Through its CBO Connect platform, HITN partnered with higher education institutions and community-based organizations to offer Career Fast Track, a program that offers accelerated distance learning courses, certificate programs, workforce training, and educational support to help adult learners get ahead and achieve their goals. HITN has also partnered with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, HACUC, to create College Admissions 411, a weekly Spanish language series which provides practical information about the complicated college admission process. And now, HITN is also developing online initiatives. One of those is HITN Learning, a web-based bilingual learning program aligned directly with the Common Core standards, designed to deliver literacy and mathematics competencies for 36 graders. It also includes a focus on healthy living. HITN is also producing a series of digital playsets for English language learners across multiple platforms. The Koyo playsets are intended to help English language learners develop skills in English language and literacy. Through its diverse programming, community...
Buenos días. No, pero tengo que practicar, o sea...
Está practicando buenos días.
Que no se te salga un gallo a la última hora, ¿verdad? Un gallito.
Pasa, eso pasa.
Buenos días, mi gente.
Y aquí está. Sí, el microfonito para cada uno.
What is that? El micrófono. Acuérdate de no decir ¿También Lima está ahí o no?
No entiendo. No lo reconozco.
Ok, ahora podemos empezar. Ya llegó Luis. That's to make you feel good. Thank you. Qué bueno. ¿Tú oyes algo, Melissa?
I don't know why you putting this exactly.
Well, pero it's not for this.
That's for the size of our line.
Right.
We're already low.
But why can't I log in?
Because their size, the tech are supposed to log in.
Okay, but I want to pay attention to it. Jesus. When I think I'm in control of it. Young people like that. Okay, I know.
Okay, looks like you guys popped up.
Bien. Bienvenidos.
Yes,
Okay, Lehman.
Javier.
Yeah.
Javier. Okay. Shouldn't he be here?
Brooklyn is missing.
Oh yeah, Brooklyn's coming out.
Hey, where's Brooklyn?
Extrema derecha. Extrema derecha. ¿Qué se dice? Izquierda, extrema izquierda.
Estaba
Ya,
tratando de...
es como digo, farther left.
Okay, we're about to start. Everybody please sit down. Becky's gonna start with you.
In one, two.
Mr. Alberto, ready?
Buenos días, bienvenidos a nuestra segunda conferencia en video desde aquí, desde Hunter College en la ciudad de Nueva York. Mi nombre es Alberto Hernández Banucci, director asociado del Centro de Estudios Puertorriqueños y su jefe de biblioteca y archivos. Estas conferencias son el producto de una colaboración entre varias instituciones académicas en Puerto Rico y aquí en el estado de Nueva York, con el propósito de ofrecer recursos educativos sobre Puerto Rico a maestros, profesores, investigadores y estudiantes. Hoy nos concentraremos en la historia de los puertorriqueños en los Estados Unidos a través de una serie de afiches ilustrados. Con nosotros tengo el placer de introducirles a dos distinguidas profesoras, investigadoras de los estudios puertorriqueños, a la profesora Virginia Sánchez Corror, a mi extrema izquierda, emérita de Brooklyn College, y a la doctora Erna Acosta Belén, profesora de la Universidad del Estado de Nueva York en Albany, quien nos va a introducir los posters. Bienvenidas. Virginia.
Gracias. Well, Welcome. This is a very, very exciting moment because Centro is pleased to present a new series of posters to aid in the teaching of Puerto Rican heritage, culture, and history. The purpose for developing the series is to provide a valuable tool for teaching the history and culture of the Puerto Rican people from the earliest extinct period to around the 13th century to the beginning of around the 21st century. And these posters will be very, very useful for teaching the history of Puerto Ricans in the United States as well, from the early decades of the 1800s until the present. The posters will serve to give the classroom teacher a bird's-eye view of periods, people, and events, and to anticipate at a glance what can be introduced into a curriculum in depth, can anticipate the subjects that would be important to meet the standards of the classroom, and to also diversify the curriculum in ways which has not been possible before. Eventually, teacher guides, videos, oral histories, clips of these conferences, and other materials from the Center for Puerto Rican Studies will be available to augment the poster series.
Buenos días, mi gente en Puerto Rico, de Arecibo y Río Piedras, y los colegas de los colegios de Hunter, Brooklyn, Lehman y de la Universidad de Albany. Les habla Edna Costa Belén y nos complace contar con su presencia y participación en esta videoconferencia sobre la enseñanza de la historia de los puertorriqueños en Estados Unidos, auspiciada por Centro. Como han mencionado mis colegas, entre los proyectos más recientes de Centro se encuentra el proyecto de los carteles sobre la herencia puertorriqueña en Estados Unidos, todavía en proceso de producción, y en el día de hoy compartiremos algunos aspectos de este proyecto con ustedes, además de otros esfuerzos e iniciativas pedagógicas de Centro. Espero que disfruten de compartir este rato con nosotros y contamos con que durante el transcurso de la videoconferencia, en los recesos que hemos reservado para preguntas y discusión con todos ustedes, los participantes de los recintos en Puerto Rico nos puedan dar una mejor idea del lugar que ocupa la historia de los puertorriqueños en Estados Unidos, en las actividades curriculares que se llevan a cabo a nivel universitario o en la enseñanza secundaria en Puerto Rico. Nos gustaría además que en el transcurso de la videoconferencia nos ayuden a identificar algunas de las necesidades curriculares y pedagógicas que confrontan en la isla respecto al estudio de este tema, ya sea en términos de incorporar esta historia en los cursos que se ofrecen en las escuelas y universidades o tener mayor acceso a información y materiales para la enseñanza. Sin más preámbulos, pasemos ahora a las secciones pregrabadas de la videoconferencia.
The Puerto Rican Heritage Poster Series exemplifies collective efforts that have been undertaken since the 1970s to rescue, document, and preserve the rich history of Puerto Rican migration and the presence and contributions of Puerto Ricans to U.S. society. The Centro de Estudios Puerto Ricanos, or as we call it, Centro, has been a leading contributor to these efforts. The poster series is a project aimed at providing an attractive visual educational tool for teachers to use and display in the classroom, and for students to be introduced and drawn to the historical information highlighted in the poster captions and images. This material includes important historical moments in the evolution of the New York Puerto Rican community and a few ones on other geographic areas, prominent community leaders and their noteworthy accomplishments, and organizations or institutions that these Puerto Rican pioneros and pioneras, both men and women, created at a given time, and which played a key role in the lives of Puerto Ricans during the process of building their communities in the United States.
So let's start with some basics. Where are Puerto Ricans right now?
The map, which is labeled "Where do Puerto Ricans live?" shown at the top of poster 1, indicates the U.S. states where Puerto Ricans were residing during the year 2010. As you can see,
Rolling.
The Puerto Rican Heritage Poster Series exemplifies collective efforts that have been undertaken since the 1970s.
Dificultades técnicas. Parece que tenemos algunas dificultades técnicas con el primer video, así que pasaremos al segundo video. Necesito instrucciones técnicas al respecto.
¿Por qué no dices algo?
Sí, como pudieron observar en la pantalla brevemente, el primer afiche de la serie es un mapa de información demográfica sobre dónde residen los puertorriqueños a través de todos los Estados Unidos y los cambios que ha habido en términos del aumento poblacional puertorriqueña. Todo esto basado en información del censo del 2010. Contiene además este afiche una gráfica, ¿no?, que demuestra claramente el aumento poblacional de los puertorriqueños desde 1910 hasta el 2010 y unos datos fundamentales sobre las características de la población puertorriqueña en Estados Unidos durante este periodo. No creo que la imagen va a salir muy bien en la pantalla, no si la trato de mostrar. Ahora vamos a pasar al segundo afiche. Highlight the indigenous Spanish and African roots of the Puerto Rican people are meant to establish the three main cultures that come together on the island as a result of a process of conquest and colonization. We start with the Taíno phase to introduce the indigenous roots of the Puerto Rican people, which most anthropologists and historians agree began around the year 1200 of the Christian era, almost 3 centuries before Columbus's arrival to the island. Then move on to the Spanish colonization process and the arrival of black Africans brought to the island by the Spanish regime during the early years of the colonial period, in part to replace the declining indigenous labor. The first part of poster 2 includes a few images meant to convey that this encounter of cultures and races was also filled with the violence of conquest and that both the Taínos and enslaved Africans rebelled against their subjugation by the Spaniards, largely at the expense of their lives. The indigenous population, for instance, was practically decimated in the first century of Spanish colonization, and African slavery lasted until 1873, when it was finally abolished.
By the late 1860s, New York already was an important place of meeting for Cubans and Puerto Ricans in the struggle for independence against Spain. Now, after the Grito de Lares was defeated, many Puerto Ricans joined the Cuban forces, the Cuban uprising, in fighting the Spaniards.
In 1889, during the heat and humidity of the wettest July on record, a newlywed couple arrived in New York City from Puerto Rico, bringing with them all the tools of his trade, the printing press. The bride, Inocencia Martinez Santaella. The groom, Sotero Figueroa, was 15 years older than she. And he was an ardent advocate of the island's independence. A very, very difficult preoccupation during this time when the colony was so severely suppressed.
Sotero Figueroa was a very important character in the development of the Puerto Rican community in the late 1890s. He was not only a member of the Sección Puerto Rico of the Cuban Revolutionary Party, but also was very active in putting out the newspaper Patria. Now this is important because it would be the first organized effort by Puerto Ricans in New York to organize the revolution in Puerto Rico.
Immigrants among the city came from Puerto Rico and Cuba as well. Among them were Ramón Emeterio Betances, who of course had been the head of the revolutionary movement in Puerto Rico that began with El Grito de Lares, Eugenio María de Hostos, the intellectual and philosopher who advocated a pan-Caribbean union, independence for Puerto Rico, and also the education for women. The journalist and typographer, Pachín Marín, who edited the newspaper El Postillon. He and his brother, Wenceslao, would give their lives for the cause on the soil of Cuba during the Spanish-Cuban-American War. Sotero Figueroa called a meeting of Puerto Ricans in his home to launch a new organization. It was the Club Borinquen. This club was important because it attempted to renew the fervor for liberation that had been lost when Cuba lost the war, the 10 Years' War to Spain. He also joined a number of other clubs that were active in the city during this time. Los Independientes was one of them. This club was founded by José Martí, and it was in this club that the Cuban Revolutionary Party was launched. Sotero Figueroa also joined Las Dos Antillas, a club that was formed by a newly arrived immigrant, an Afro-Puerto Rican named Arturo Schomburg. He was to become known as the bibliophile and historian of the African experience in diaspora. If you notice some of the illustrations of the poster, you will see that one of the uniqueness. If you were able to notice some of the illustrations of the posters, you will see that the uniqueness of some of the materials that have been used to do the illustrations. And once these posters are in your hand and of the size that the poster will be, you will be able to appreciate works that perhaps you had never seen before. For example, the picture of Inocencia Martinez Santaella was something that we just discovered. Now, as to the questions, questions.
Gracias.
¿Hay algunas preguntas o quieren discutir algo de los carteles?
¿No?
No.
Buenos días, no, de momento no tenemos preguntas, gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias. We have Brooklyn on the line. Is Brooklyn College in the house?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hi.
Buen día. My question is, we're here from Puerto Rican Latino Studies at Brooklyn College, so saludos, Maria Perez Gonzalez, Matilda Nizal, and Tamara Mosey Brown from Sociology. My question is, when are the posters going to be made available, and how soon can we use them?
If we have immediate answers to your questions, we can give them to you right now. If not, we will send you an email with the information. But it's good to see friendly faces there. When will the posters be online? When will they be ready?
Sí, todavía los carteles están en proceso de producción. Ya hemos completado 5 de ellos, ¿no? De un total de 7. Además se va a desarrollar una guía de estudio para acompañar a los carteles, así que me imagino que será un proceso de 2 o 3 meses antes de que todo esté concluido y terminado, ¿no? Pero se les informará a las diferentes instituciones cuando tengamos todo listo.
Thank you, Brooklyn. Lehman. Do we have questions from Lehman? Comments? No? Río Piedras.
Hola, Andy.
Andy.
Okay.
Río Piedras no hay preguntas ahora, excepto, pero la pregunta que tenía precisamente era la que Brooklyn College levantó sobre cuándo estaría, y particularmente la guía de utilización de los posters.
¿Cómo no? Gracias.
Gracias.
Hunter.
Habla Pedro Hernández desde la Tercera Avenida y 119. Brevemente queremos presentar a los compañeros que están aquí y hay una pregunta.
Hola, doctora, ¿cómo está?
¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estamos?
Para aporte de la Biblioteca Dominicana de este país.
Mucho gusto.
Saludos, buenos días. Mendez Santana de la Biblioteca Dominicana y el Archivo Dominicana de City College.
Fresco Piero, registered nurse from the Graduate Center.
Buenos días, Valencia,
Buenos días, me llamo Richard Lara y trabajo aquí en Estético.
La pregunta del compañero.
Sí, the question is, would you say that these early Puerto Rican activists in New York inspired other Latino groups in New York to organize and other Puerto Rican communities throughout the United States?
Your question is, were there other Latino activists involved with Puerto Ricans in the United States? Do I have that right?
No. If the impact of these early Puerto Rican activists, if it inspired other Latino groups and also future Puerto Rican activists throughout the United States, and not so necessarily New York.
Yes, they did. First of all, the coalitions of particularly Cubans and Puerto Ricans that were living in New York during this time were extremely active, and they not only inspired but organized with other such groups along the eastern seacoast, particularly in Florida, in Philadelphia, in New Orleans, and in New York City. The interesting thing about it is that the movement for independence during the 19th century also included expatriates from Venezuela, from Texas, veterans who had fought in the Mexican in the War of Mexico and the United States, 1848, and had gone into exile, Colombians, Dominicans, and Dominicans, Colombians, Cubans. We have quite a few that were working together. So that I think the inspiration was among these groups. It was very, very real. It was very important. And yes, there was a great deal of inspiration. And you know that inspiration is found in the works that they left us. In the articles in Patria, for example, in the books that they published, because New York was the center for Spanish language publication during the 19th century, everything that was read throughout the Spanish-speaking world in the Western Hemisphere was published in New York. So the answer to your question is yes, most definitely there was.
Thank you.
Are there questions from any of the other sites that they would like to take up at this point? Well, I have a question for you. How does this material, particularly in Rio Piedras, how would this material fit into your curriculum? How would you use it in your teaching?
Can you repeat the question?
No escucha, Río Piedras. La pregunta es con respecto al uso que ustedes le pueden dar a este tipo de material e información sobre los puertorriqueños en Estados Unidos en el currículo que enseñan en la universidad o el currículo que usan en el adiestramiento de maestros de escuela secundaria.
Bueno, yo de inmediato podría, de paso, mi nombre es José Sánchez, de la Escuela Graduada de Ciencia y Tecnología de Información. Yo de inmediato podría pensar en la utilización de estos recursos dentro del currículo de la Escuela de Bibliotecología en términos de la formación de bibliotecarios escolares y bibliotecarios académicos. Los puedo visualizar utilizándolos como base para generar proyectos donde los estudiantes, futuros bibliotecarios, puedan preparar, digamos, iniciativas o actividades para el desarrollo de competencias de información partiendo de una investigación generada por estos carteles. Especialmente en el nivel escolar, donde ya existen cursos que nosotros tenemos en los programas de la biblioteca vinculados al currículo, podría fácilmente incorporarse estos recursos.
Profesora Nancy Abreu, bibliotecario referencista de la colección puertorriqueña, sí. En nuestra Facultad de Ciencias Sociales, uno de los trabajos que le mandan a hacer en muchos de los cursos de sociología, de historia de Puerto Rico, de economía de Puerto Rico, tiene que ver con la emigración de puertorriqueños a Nueva York. Y para nosotros, yo creo que estos carteles, como fuente para orientar a esos estudiantes que a veces no tienen ese contexto, creo que nos van a ser bien útiles para esos estudiantes de bachillerato, que aunque nosotros tenemos mucha información de los procesos migratorios de los puertorriqueños a Nueva York, pero ese contexto me parece que va a ser bien beneficioso para nuestros estudiantes subgraduados a la hora de orientarlos en el proceso de referencia.
Excelente.
Así que muchas gracias, creo que es un gran...
nos complace mucho, ¿no? Saber que va a ser un proyecto útil para ustedes, especialmente en el adiestramiento de bibliotecarios. Yo espero también que en el adiestramiento de maestros para los niveles escolares, que también estos afiches sean útiles, además de la guía de estudio que va a acompañar este proyecto.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a quick announcement. If the sites have a question, would they just raise their hands and we'll be able to go to them immediately. And for Albany, who is lacking sound, please post your questions on the right upstream, and we will be able to get to them. Right on screen. Okay. Ustream. It was Ustream.
Ahora pasaremos al próximo afiche sobre los pioneros y pioneras, migrant pioneers to the U.S. from 1898 to the 1930s.
In the 1890s, the United States had one of the most dynamic economies in the world. It was a vibrant manufacturing center and an important investment site for European capital. But the 1890s was also a period of substantial international instability The major European nations and Japan were expanding rapidly. They were establishing colonies throughout the world, quickly swallowing up areas that were vital for their own economic growth and expansion. So the United States looked at the world and realized it was at a relatively competitive disadvantage. It needed to establish colonies in order to guarantee it would have access to vital markets.
A colonial territory of the United States. And this became the law in 1900 under the Foraker Act. The Foraker Act not only created a colonial regime in Puerto Rico, a government controlled by the U.S. government, but also the Foraker Act made Puerto Ricans citizens of Puerto Rico. Even the name was changed from Puerto to Porto. God knows why. In 1904, the Supreme Court would decide in Gonzalez versus Williams that although Puerto Ricans were not aliens in the legal sense, they were neither citizens of the U.S. Okay? After this decision, the U.S. government would adopt the category of U.S. nationals for the colonial subjects coming from Puerto Rico and the United States. Puerto Ricans would remain U.S. nationals until they became citizens after the Jones Act of 1917.
My parents were pioneros, and when they came, I don't think they came with that concept in mind. And when they were raising us, I don't think we ever thought of them as pioneros. I now fully acknowledge that they were pioneros. I was surprised when I went to the Puerto Rican history of that time to see how many organizations there were and what they were about. Because the community was certainly not politically strong. There weren't that many. And we're not talking about necessarily a skilled immigration, which is always very helpful in terms of establishing yourself, skilled in terms of lots of education, professionalism. It was more of a labor migration. However, I remember in the stories that my father used to tell that he got around, and so he was always intersecting. I remember he would tell stories about but everything took place in his mind in houses. People visited each other and people met in houses. And so he would tell stories about meeting Luis Muñoz Marín and other political figures from all places on the spectrum.
Ese sentido de comunidad, ese sentido de nosotros los puertorriqueños, y se va formando una costumbre, una cultura de leer en español, de publicar cosas en español sobre lo que le pasaba cada día y también sobre Puerto Rico. Una de las personas que publicaba mucho en estos periódicos, especialmente uno que se llamaba Gráfico, fue Jesús Colón. Jesús Colón publicaba crónicas donde describía la experiencia de los puertorriqueños en su comunidad. Otros intelectuales de la época, líderes de la comunidad, publicaban diferentes temas como literatura, política, y también en muchos de estos periódicos explicaban y presentaban sus negocios.
It linked Puerto Ricans to a young Italian-American lawyer by the name of Vito Marcantonio. He became the congressman for the district, including El Barrio, in 1934. And thus began a very long relationship between Marcantonio and Puerto Ricans.
By the 1930s, the demographic reality is significantly different. Now we have about 50,000 Puerto Ricans living in various parts of New York, and this is the time where they begin to be noticed politically. LaGuardia's re-election bid to the House of Representatives in 1932 was lost in part because La Guardia did not pay attention to the growing Puerto Rican community in Lower Manhattan, whereas La Guardia's opponents, Tammany Hall, the Democratic Party organization, did pay attention to this incoming group that was significantly larger in the 1930s than in the 1920s, and mobilized them in support of La Guardia's opponent, James Lanceta. Puerto Ricans were not the only 5 years later, in 1937, Puerto Ricans elect Oscar Garcia Rivera to represent the Manhattan district in the state assembly. And Oscar Garcia Rivera, at that early stage, becomes the first Puerto Rican elected official in the United States.
Bueno, ahora tenemos el periodo de preguntas, así que vamos a empezar con Liman. Liman, ¿hay alguna pregunta? Levanten la mano para... Albany. ¿Han podido transmitir alguna pregunta a Albany? ¿Están teniendo algunas dificultades técnicas? ¿Sí? No los escuchamos. Muy bien, seguimos con Liman entonces. ¿No? Arecibo.
From 119th Street.
Veo una mano en Hunter.
Sí, dice.
Pasemos
aquí,
a Hunter. Sí.
Una pregunta, doctora. ¿Estos postes o carteles al español?
Sí, hasta todos son en inglés hasta ahora. No se han discutido planes de traducción. Hay que buscar auspiciadores para ese tipo de proyectos. Hunter, ¿había otra pregunta en Hunter?
Sí, a ver si pueden expandir un poco el concepto, además de los carteles, sé que están trabajando en otros tipos de materiales que acompañan y que explicar un poco cómo se incorporan recursos que tenemos entre los.
Sí, voy a pasarle el micrófono a Luis Reyes para que comente.
Yo no oí la pregunta que estaba...
sobre otros proyectos curriculares o materiales que está desarrollando Centro.
Is there other curricular projects that will complement the post?
Yeah.
We are working, today we are meeting with an advisory board of educators here in New York precisely to talk about that, how we can look at Centro's resources, its documentaries, its archive, the many events that we have videotaped, and make them available and connect them, align them with social studies curriculum in the high schools as well as an undergraduate curriculum. And so that is our intention. If you look at the graphic of the poster, you will see names and events. They are links to the Centro website. And so whether it's Jesus Colon or Antonia Pantoja, the material in the posters are connected to content on our website that would include videos and documentaries about Pura Belfre, Jesus Colon, Frank Bonilla, Antonia Pantoja, and the like. And we hope to work with educators to develop curriculum guides or teacher's guides that would include questions and connect to bibliographic material and other resources that the teacher and students can use in the classroom.
Yeah, I also want to mention that when you go on the website, you can go into a section called Education, and in that there is another subsection that is called Open Courseware. These are materials, and we're constantly adding to them that are useful for teachers. One of them that I've worked on is the history of Puerto Ricans in the U.S. But what's really significant about the way that the courseware is organized is that it gives you both primary and secondary sources that you can then go into as well to develop your materials and your teaching materials even further. We also have in the planning stages a series of videos that will accompany or at least work in partnership with the poster series that will also be on the history of Puerto Ricans in the United States.
One of the other courses that is on the website is Professor Vanessa Perez Rosario, The History of Puerto Ricans in New York, and it's teaching about it to teachers. And there are lectures that she gave that have been videotaped.
Okay, thank you. Now back to our colleagues in Albany. I hope you can communicate. Albany?
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Does that sound okay? We have to turn you off for you to hear us.
We can hear you.
We have a question. No, we can hear it. Yeah, we have a question so they can hear it, and then we turn it.
Questions, comments?
Not now. Yeah, wave your hand if you hear us.
Okay.
Do you hear us? Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Okay, now what to do next time we'll have a question.
Okay.
When do you have a question?
Vamos a pasar a Brooklyn. Brooklyn, ¿alguna pregunta de Brooklyn?
Was just answered.
Okay. Río Piedras, no he dejado a nadie afuera, ¿verdad?
Presence of Puerto Ricans, moments in history where nobody would even think.
Sí, Río Piedras, hablen.
Sí, buenas. Yo tengo una pregunta. En las guías que van a desarrollar de los pósters, ¿van a tener bibliografías de esas fuentes primarias y secundarias que utilizaron para construir el póster?
Sí.
Y si van a estar disponibles, aunque se contestó un poco antes, pero que si tienen planeado que eso esté disponible en algún formato digital.
Sí habrá información de fuentes, ¿no?, para cada uno de los pósters, de información detallada, no solamente conectándolo con los recursos que el centro tiene disponibles, sino también bibliografía sobre el tema, ¿no?, que ya sea que se haya publicado en español o en inglés. Así que habrá bastante información para cada afiche.
¿Y estará en la página electrónica?
Sí, todo esto se estará disponible a través de la página electrónica del centro. Muy bien. ¿Alguna otra pregunta más? No. Pasemos entonces a...
So now we're going to our next poster, which is the Great Migration from the 1940s to the mid-1960s, and I think that you will find some very, very nice surprises in this one regarding the use of illustration that perhaps you have never seen before.
In 1947, two very important pieces of legislation was approved by the Puerto Rican government. The first one is widely known. It's called the Industrial Incentives Act, most popularly known as Operation Bootstrap. Through this law, the Puerto Rican government would offer incentives to American corporations to settle on the island. In December of 1947,
Nuevamente dificultades técnicas, así que tendremos que tomar un pequeño receso en lo que se resuelven.
You want me to talk about the poster?
Edna?
I can go into
Sí, cómo
yeah.
no.
Let me talk. Okay. Until we fix these minor glitches that we have, you know how it is when you work with technology. Let me tell you something about this poster. First of all, if you can see, it's a very, very attractive one, as are all the posters in the series. We begin with the Great Migration, and I'll read you some of the headings. We talk about the large migration of Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico to the United States, mid-1940s to the 1950s, and we have some excellent shots of the airplanes that were first used to bring this great migration here. We go down to from still in the 1940s. We dedicate one section to Julia de Burgos, who's a very, very interesting person in and of her own right, and the contributions that she has made. But the other thing that's interesting about Julia de Burgos is that she actually is a transitional person who is part of the pioneer generations, but is also part of the Great Migration. Mm-hmm. The first trip that she makes to the United States is by ship, and then she leaves, and the second trip is by air. And in that sense, she is a pivotal character because she's able to work with both generations, so that's an interesting fact about Julia. In the 1940s, Antonia Pantoja, and I'm not just paying attention to the women, there were also a number of very, very significant men who made tremendous contributions. Appear in New York in 1942, for example, Clemente Soto, who was a leading member of a vanguard poetic movement in Puerto Rico in the late 1920s. He was sent to a federal prison twice in the late 1930s for his political activities in the Nationalist Party. And during almost 4 decades that he lived in New York, he joined the political campaigns of Congressman Vito Marcantonio. And you probably heard a little bit about Vito Marcantonio in the clip that we had to abort. 1947, we're talking about the influx of Puerto Ricans into the United States and the kind of work that they were doing. And now I want to come to this point before I give it to Edna, is that we include someone in this particular poster that many of us had not really regarded as an important figure in Puerto Rican heritage and culture, and that is the Felicita Mendez, a young Puerto Rican woman who left Puerto Rico in 1916 and went with her family to Arizona, where they were migrant laborers. She lived the rest of her life in Arizona and then went to California. And she was actually living in the United States at the time that citizenship was passed for all Puerto Ricans. And of course, she was an American citizen as a result. The interesting thing about Felicita Mendez is that when she was living in California with her husband and her 3 children, she was part of a very, very significant case. Supreme Court heard the case of Mendez, her name was Felicita Mendez, versus Westminster. A group of Mexican-American families, and the Mendez were the leading plaintiffs in the case, sued 5 school districts in California for segregation against their children. The Mendez children had gone to register in the local elementary school, and they were told that they were to go to the Mexican school, the reason being that they were too dark. Their complexion was too dark, and therefore they had to be Mexicans, even though they were US born, spoke English, and had no experience with anything but the United States. Now here's the important part. The Mendez versus Westminster case is the first case in the nation to abolish segregation in the throughout California, and it sets a precedent for Brown versus Board of Education, which does not take place until 1950. The Mendez case takes place in 1946, and Sylvia Mendez, who was one of the children involved in the case, of course, recently received the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her activism, and I understand that when she was approached to do a video for the Centro, she was very, very pleased because no one ever mentions her Puerto Rican heritage. So Edna, you want to go on to the rest of the
Sí,
poster?
cómo no. Quería señalar que cuando se conceptualizó este cartel sobre la gran migración de los puertorriqueños a Estados Unidos a principios de los 1940 hasta mediados de los 1960, tratamos de describir las realidades y las transformaciones que se están llevando a cabo en Puerto Rico y cómo se están conectadas con todo el proceso de migración. O sea que no estamos viendo aquí vidas de los puertorriqueños que están completamente separadas, unos en Estados Unidos y otros en Puerto Rico, sino que se está llevando a cabo una dinámica en Puerto Rico de transformación socioeconómica que de muchas maneras va a contribuir a ese éxodo masivo de la segunda posguerra que se lleva a cabo en Puerto Rico. Y cómo el gobierno de Puerto Rico, y estamos hablando ya de el nuevo gobierno, ¿no?, del Partido Popular y que va a llevarnos hasta la inauguración del Estado Libre Asociado en 1952, cuando Puerto Rico se transforma de una sociedad agrícola a una sociedad industrial, y cómo se empieza a manejar por parte del gobierno de Puerto Rico todo el proceso de migración, especialmente por las reacciones que se están llevando a cabo en Nueva York en cuanto a la presencia y el aumento poblacional tan exorbitante que ocurre durante ese periodo, ¿no?, en Nueva York, y que empieza a ser descrito en los periódicos como el problema puertorriqueño, the Puerto Rican problem. Claro está que el gobierno de Puerto Rico quería de cierta manera colaborar, ¿no?, con las autoridades en Estados Unidos para ver cómo se podía manejar esa situación en Nueva York, y enviar parte de esa emigración a otros lugares en Estados Unidos, ¿no? Ciudades como Chicago, Filadelfia, en New Jersey, Newark y Patterson, esas áreas en las cuales se establecieron comunidades puertorriqueñas grandes durante ese periodo. Así que es el ver esta dinámica entrelazada, ¿no? de lo que está ocurriendo en Puerto Rico y los cambios en Puerto Rico y cómo eso contribuye al éxodo de puertorriqueños de la isla durante este periodo.
Pero también, Edna, lo interesante del caso también es que en este cartel, como en los otros, se ve, por ejemplo, los primeros esfuerzos que hacen los puertorriqueños para establecer comunidad aquí. Por ejemplo, en 1958, el desfile puertorriqueño, the first one. And then that is copied throughout the United States so that you cannot go to a town in the United States today without having a Puerto Rican Day Parade if there are Puerto Ricans in that town. And we also see for the first time a school named after a Puerto Rican activist, and that is the Carlos Tapia School. So I understand that there's a question from 119th Street.
Hunter.
Quería añadir que parte de lo que ustedes estaban presentando para los otros compañeros que están en los otros lugares, que uno de los recursos que tenemos acá en el centro que conecta la isla con las comunidades en la diáspora son los documentos de la División de Migración, que era la agencia puertorriqueña que trataba de incluir o regular la migración de los puertorriqueños a la región del noreste, medio oeste y sur de Estados Unidos, y que es parte de los recursos que ustedes usan en los carteles y que sé que van a usar en los videos y los otros productos interactivos que van a crear. O sea que es una colección riquísima porque documenta la experiencia de los puertorriqueños, no solo en Nueva York, pero en toda esa área del medio oeste de Estados Unidos. Así que quería añadir eso.
We continue? Yes. So, well, at this point, we end this particular poster with 1964, which is a pivotal year in the United States. And of course, Puerto Ricans have a tremendous role in this because 1964 is the year of the passage of the Civil Rights Act. And we see also the intensification of what we refer to as the Puerto Rican movement, which is something that will be covered in poster 5 and probably and bringing it up to conclusion in poster 6. Edna, we have 5 minutes. You want to say something about?
Sí, cómo no. En cuanto a los afiches que no están listos todavía, ¿no?, para ser presentados, está el afiche de lo que se llama en inglés el Puerto Rican Movement, el movimiento puertorriqueño, que incluye, ¿no?, las luchas de derechos civiles de los puertorriqueños en los años 60 y 70, pero también todo el nuevo ambiente que se crea, ¿no?, especialmente en los años 70 en adelante, de revitalización étnica, en un periodo en el cual se empiezan a establecer diversas instituciones, especialmente instituciones culturales como el Museo del Barrio, Taller Boricua, el New Yorican Poets Café, entre otros. Estoy segura que se me han olvidado algunos, y que reflejan, ¿no?
Y los estudios puertorriqueños.
Claro está. ¿Cómo olvidar la organización de estudios puertorriqueños que también se crea durante estos años?
Y los departamentos.
Y los departamentos de estudios puertorriqueños que se establecen en colegios y universidades del sistema de CUNY y de SUNY. De hecho, Albany fue una de las primeras instituciones en el sistema de SUNY que estableció un programa de estudios puertorriqueños, pero también los hubo, ¿no?, a través de todo el sistema de CUNY, Rutgers University. Todo este periodo de efervescencia, ¿no?, cultural y del desarrollo de los estudios puertorriqueños, lo que podríamos llamar la nueva historiografía de la diáspora. ¿Hay alguna otra pregunta de los compañeros que nos están escuchando en las otras instituciones? ¿No? Río Piedras. Ah, veo a Albany.
Tienen preguntas.
Albany tiene preguntas. Muy bien, vamos. Ahora no les escuchamos.
I had a question before.
Bueno, vamos, José. Te escuchamos.
Question about this particular.
That's okay.
Vamos.
You can ask questions whether they're related to the poster or not.
Okay.
Oh.
Hunter, la 119.
Space is limited in these posters, but how much will be devoted to the Puerto Rican independence movement, specifically people like Pedro Albizu Campos and their influence on the Puerto Rican liberation movement here in the United States? Specifically, as they affect people like the Young Lords Party and so on. Will that be incorporated in these posters?
Sí, nosotros no podemos cambiar la historia y una gran parte de la historia de las comunidades puertorriqueñas en Estados Unidos, ¿no?, es la presencia de exiliados políticos. Lo fue en el siglo XIX cuando los puertorriqueños vinieron al exilio a Nueva York, los separatistas, ¿no?, y se unieron a los cubanos, y lo fue también durante la época en que Puerto Rico tenía un sistema muy represivo especialmente contra los nacionalistas, pero también contra los simpatizantes con la independencia de Puerto Rico. Así que sí incluimos parte de esa historia, porque es importante en términos de entender que la migración puertorriqueña a Estados Unidos no fue solamente una migración económica, sino que también hubo periodos, ¿no?, en que lo político influyó esa migración. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Río Piedras está esperando y Albany también está esperando. Nos dicen que no tenemos tiempo.
Qué lástima si ahora
Río Piedras.
Estamos empezando.
Río Piedras. Sí, a mí me interesaría saber si ustedes han pensado algún tipo de póster, porque en la literatura puertorriqueña, Pedro Juan Soto, José Luis González, Emilio de Albarcárcel, y por no hablar de René Marqués, ¿no?, cómo se ha trabajado este proceso de la inmigración. José Luis González dice que la literatura es como la experiencia personal de la persona con la historia, los sentimientos. Y me parece que sería bien enriquecedor que se trabajara en algún póster la literatura que refleja ese proceso de migración, sobre todo en los 40, que es como que hacen un boom en la literatura puertorriqueña, si lo han considerado trabajar.
Sí, hemos considerado la parte de literatura y de las artes visuales también, ¿no?, de cómo incorporarlo a la serie de pósters. Todavía están pendientes varias decisiones al respecto, ¿no?, porque ya es algo bastante extenso y más complejo para resumirlo en un póster, así que seguiremos informando con respecto a los planes en esa área, pero sí la hemos discutido, hemos tenido algunas conversaciones al respecto.
A menos que lo hagan por autores, el póster por un autor en particular, por lo menos los más que han trabajado el tema de la emigración en su cuentística o en su novelística, lo podrían mirar de esa forma.
Sí, está hablando de los isleños que escribieron sobre la diáspora.
Sí, porque a mí siempre me ha interesado contrastar, por ejemplo, lo que escribe Pedro Juan Soto con a mí me parece bien significativo las experiencias escritas en la crónica cuando dice de gráfico. Una cosa es lo que escriben los de acá y una cosa es lo que, aunque Pedro Juan Soto estuvo en Nueva York,
sí,
José Luis González estuvo en Nueva York, o sea que tienen esa dualidad como escritores, ¿no? Pero que me parecería muy interesante que se explorara eso.
Muy bien, gracias por la sugerencia, es muy interesante, ¿no? Y es algo que tendremos en mente.
Parece que
Albany nos está esperando. No hemos podido comunicarnos.
We're taking a couple of questions. It's going to just take a minute, and we can't listen to you and ask our questions at the same time, so we have to keep you on mute so there's no feedback. But we'll just ask our questions and comments, and then hopefully you can respond. Some of them pertain to previous posters.
Okay, so on the first two posters, we have a question in that some of our people felt that poster 2 covered up to 1510 and then jumped to the 1800s. And poster 2 covers information about the development of the Puerto Rican population during the colonial.
Sí.
Related to that question,
Chris,
we'd like to know about the importance of Puerto Rico as a situado location. That's our questions on the early poster. Jose, do you want to give the questions on the bigger?
Well, I have one general comment, which is I think this process is it's very satisfying as a way of sharing information and having an interaction in terms of questions and answers. So to be the fly in the ointment, but this has not been a good experience. Question slash comment has to do with how we think about what Puerto Rican history in the United States and what the Puerto Rican experience in the United States is all about, the context of all this new information that we are uncovering, that we're making available. What does it mean in terms of how we have thought about ourselves and how others have thought about Puerto Ricans in the United States? It's interesting to know that there was Westminster before Brown versus Board of Education, but so what? What does that really mean? And then secondly, what does this hold in terms of American history, the character of United States democracy? What do we have, what does our experience have to say about the way we think about democracy and the kinds of changes that should be, could conceivably be understood as necessary to make our system.
We're going to go off the Zoom, so we need to turn you back on and turn ourselves off. Give us 30 seconds.
Where are we? Hola, ¿me escuchan ahora? Sí, con respecto a la pregunta sobre el cartel número 2 y la periodización, ¿no?, de la primera parte, las raíces culturales. Esta es una serie de pósters sobre la experiencia de los puertorriqueños en Estados Unidos. Por lo tanto, esa parte que establece las conexiones con Puerto Rico, las conexiones culturales y aquellos detalles históricos que son más relevantes y que empiezan a explicar las conexiones entre Puerto Rico y Estados Unidos, ¿no?, especialmente en el siglo XIX, y la presencia de los puertorriqueños en Estados Unidos. Esa es la parte que destacamos. Por eso hay un periodo en el intermedio de la época colonial que no está bien cubierto, ¿no?, en ese afiche, el afiche número 2. Okay.
Well, I think we have to end the discussion at this point. We're getting some signs saying that we've run over, but if it were up to us, we could continue talking with you guys for another hour. This has been great. Thank you so much, and let's keep in touch.
Ha sido un placer tenerlos con nosotros y disculpen todas las dificultades técnicas en el día de hoy.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Está haciendo los